I never imagined signing divorce papers would feel like breathing fresh air for the first time in years. My name is Emmett Wagner, and I'm sitting in my grandfather's old office above what everyone called that useless warehouse on the east side of Atlanta. The place smelled like motor oil and history, exactly how Pop left it 3 years ago. My wife Clarissa stood in the doorway, designer purse clutched tight, that fake smile plastered across her face. "Baby, we need to talk about this building." Her voice dripped with honey, but I knew venom when I heard it. We'd been married 6 years, and somewhere around year 4, she stopped looking at me and started looking through me, straight to my bank account. Pop died on a rainy Tuesday in March, leaving me this warehouse in his will. My mother cried. My uncle Oscar got angry. But Pop's lawyer, Mr. Henderson, handed me the deed with a strange smile, saying, "Your grandfather knew exactly what he was doing, son." I didn't understand then. The warehouse sat on 3 acres of cracked concrete and weeds, filled with old machinery and dust. Clarissa called it an eyesore. She wanted me to sell it immediately, but something in Pop's eyes during our last conversation stopped me. He'd grabbed my hand, his skin paper-thin, and whispered, "Don't let nobody take what's yours, Emmett. Not nobody." Now Clarissa stood there, scrolling through her phone, not even pretending to care about my grief anymore. "Emmett, I've been thinking," Clarissa started, sitting down without being invited. She crossed her legs, those expensive heels clicking against the worn floorboards. "This warehouse is just sitting here, rotting. You're not doing anything with it." I looked up from Pop's old ledgers, pages yellow with age, filled with his careful handwriting. "It's been 3 months, Clarissa. I'm still figuring things out." She laughed, that sharp sound that used to be musical but now cut like glass. "Figuring what out? It's a dump, Emmett. But I have an idea." Here we go, I thought. Clarissa always had ideas, and they always benefited her. My friend Deandra and I want to open a boutique fitness studio. You know, high-end yoga, Pilates, juice bar. This location could be perfect. I blinked. Perfect? Clarissa, this is an industrial warehouse in a rough neighborhood. That's the point. Gentrification. Baby. We'd be pioneers. And it's free real estate. The way she said free made my stomach turn. Nothing about Pop's legacy felt free. It cost him 60 years of sweat and sacrifice. "I need time to think about it," I said carefully. Her expression shifted, warmth draining like water from a tub. "Time? Emmett, when are you going to stop being such a child about money? This building is worthless to you. At least let me make something of it." That phrase, "make something of it," like Pop's entire life amounted to nothing. Like I amounted to nothing. That night, Clarissa deployed her secret weapon, my mother-in-law, Bianca. They tag-teamed me over dinner at our Buckhead condo, the one Clarissa insisted we buy despite my protests about the mortgage. "Emmett, sweetheart," Bianca cooed, cutting her salmon with surgical precision. "Clarissa tells me you're being stubborn about that old building." I set down my fork. "I'm being thoughtful, not stubborn. What's there to think about?" Bianca continued, her voice sharpening. "That warehouse represents the past. Clarissa is your future. A wife should come first." Clarissa reached for my hand, her touch cold despite the warmth in the room. "Baby, I know your grandfather meant a lot to you. But he's gone. We're here, we're alive, and we need to build our life together." Something in her emphasis on our felt wrong, like she was claiming ownership of something that wasn't hers. I pulled my hand away gently. I need to understand what Pop wanted for this place. Clarissa's face flushed. What he wanted? Emmett, he's dead. He doesn't want anything anymore. You're so busy living in the past that you can't see the opportunity right in front of you. Opportunity for who? The words escaped before I could stop them. The table went silent. Bianca's eyes narrowed. Clarissa stood abruptly, chair scraping against our expensive hardwood floors. "You know what? Forget it. Keep your precious warehouse. Stay stuck. See if I care." But she did care. I just didn't know why yet. The next morning, I went back to the warehouse alone. Sunday light filtered through broken windows, casting shadows across Pop-Pop's old machinery. I'd spent summers here as a kid, watching him work, listening to stories about building something from nothing. "This here's legacy, Emmett," he'd say, wiping grease from his hands. "Not the building itself, but what it represents. A black man owning property in this city, that's power they can't take away." I was exploring the back office when I found it, a locked filing cabinet I'd overlooked before. The key hung on Pop-Pop's old keychain, the one Mr. Henderson had given me with the deed. Inside were folders, documents, and a letter addressed to me in Pop-Pop's shaky handwriting. "Emmett, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't be sad, boy. I lived a full life. This warehouse ain't what it seems. Before you make any decisions, talk to Richard Brenton. He's a historian downtown. His number's on the business card in this envelope. Trust nobody else, not even family. Especially not nobody who married you for what you got instead of who you are. Love, Pop-Pop." My hands shook. How did he know about Clarissa? I found the business card, Dr. Richard Brenton, Historic Preservation Society of Georgia. I called immediately. "Mr. Wagner," Dr. Brenton answered, like he'd been waiting. "I wondered when you'd reach out. Your grandfather and I were friends. We need to talk, but not over the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow?" That evening, Clarissa came home with Deandra, her business partner. Deandra was everything Clarissa admired: wealthy, connected, ruthless in heels. They'd met at some networking event for lady bosses, and Clarissa had been insufferable ever since. "Emmett!" Clarissa called out, too cheerful. "Deandra's here. We want to talk about the warehouse proposal properly." They cornered me in the living room, laptops and folders spread across the coffee table. Deandra's smile was sharp as a knife. "Emmett, I've done the preliminary work. That warehouse, with proper renovation, could be a gold mine. I'm talking $2 million investment, projected returns of $5 million in 3 years. $2 million. I asked. "Where would that come from?" "I have investors ready," Deandra said smoothly. "All we need is the property. You'd sign it over to our LLC, we'd handle everything, and you'd get 40% of profits." 40% of my own property. The audacity. "And if it fails?" I asked. Deandra's smile never wavered. "It won't. But if hypothetically it did, the LLC would absorb the loss. You'd just lose the building. So either way, I lose the warehouse." Clarissa jumped in, her voice syrupy. "Baby, you're not losing anything. You're investing in us, in our future. Don't you trust me?" The question hung there, heavy with implications. The truth was, I didn't. Not anymore. "I need to think about it," I said again. Deandra's expression flickered with something dark before smoothing over. "Time is money, Emmett. This offer won't last forever." Monday morning, I met Dr. Brenton at a small coffee shop in Virginia Highland. He was elderly, Chinese-American, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "Your grandfather was a remarkable man," Dr. Brenton said, sliding a folder across the table. "Did he ever tell you about the warehouse's history?" I shook my head. "Just that he bought it in 1975. It's much older than that, Emmett. That building was constructed in 1891 by the Johnson brothers, two of Atlanta's first successful black entrepreneurs after Reconstruction. It was a manufacturing plant, a gathering space, a hub of black economic power during some of the darkest times in Southern history." My coffee went cold as Dr. Brenton continued, pulling out photographs, documents, architectural drawings. The building survived the 1906 race riots, Jim Crow, urban renewal projects that demolished dozens of black-owned properties. "Your grandfather knew its significance. He spent years documenting everything, working with me to get it recognized." "Recognized as what?" I asked, though something in my gut already knew. Dr. Brenton's expression turned grave. "Emmett, that warehouse is eligible for National Historic Landmark status. The paperwork is nearly complete. Once designated, the property becomes protected. It can never be demolished or significantly altered. And its value. He paused, meeting my eyes. Conservative estimates put it at $150 million, maybe more. It's one of the last intact examples of post-Reconstruction black entrepreneurship in the South. The world tilted. $150 million. Clarissa's face flashed through my mind, her insistence, her urgency, Deandra's convenient timing. I sat in my car outside the coffee shop for an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. $150 million. The phrase kept echoing through my head like a drumbeat. Pop hadn't left me a burden. He'd left me a kingdom, and Clarissa was trying to steal the crown. My phone buzzed, 14 missed calls from Clarissa, 6 from Deandra. I didn't answer. Dr. Brenton had given me copies of everything, the historical documentation, the preliminary valuation reports, letters from the National Park Service. The designation will be finalized within 6 months, he'd explained. Your grandfather wanted to tell you himself, but cancer moved faster than bureaucracy. He made me promise to protect this secret until you were ready. He was worried about. Dr. Brenton had trailed off, but I finished the sentence in my head, worried about people who'd want to take it from me. I drove to my mother's house in East Point. She was my father's widow, not Pop's daughter, but she'd known him well. She answered the door in her nurse's scrubs, just home from a double shift. Emmett? What's wrong, baby? Inside, over sweet tea, I told her everything. Her face cycled through shock, pride, and finally, anger. That Clarissa, she hissed. I knew something was off about that girl. Too polished, too eager to marry you right after your promotion at the firm. You think she knew? I asked. Mama's eyes met mine. Baby, I think you need to find out exactly what she knows, and more importantly, who told her. I set a trap. That night, I came home and announced to Clarissa that I'd decided to give her the warehouse. Her face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? Oh baby, I knew you'd see reason. She threw her arms around me, and I felt nothing but disgust. There's just one thing, I said, pulling back. I want to meet with your lawyer, review the LLC paperwork properly. Make sure everything's legitimate. Something flickered in her eyes. Was it panic? But she recovered quickly. Of course. Transparency is important. Deandra's lawyer can have everything ready by Friday. We'll do the closing then. Friday. 4 days away. I nodded, playing the role of the trusting husband. Sounds perfect. She kissed me, her lips foreign against mine, then disappeared into the bedroom, already on her phone. I heard her hushed voice. Dee? He agreed. Friday. No, he doesn't suspect anything. I recorded every word. The next morning, I called Mr. Henderson, Pop's lawyer. Emmett, I was hoping you'd reach out, he said. Your grandfather left specific instructions. If anyone pressures you about that property, particularly family members through marriage, I'm authorized to share certain documents. What documents? I asked. Evidence, Mr. Henderson said carefully. Let's meet this afternoon. At his office downtown, Mr. Henderson laid it all out. Pop had hired a private investigator last year when he noticed Clarissa asking too many questions about his assets at a family dinner. The folder was devastating. Photos of Clarissa meeting with Deandra months before Pop died, documents showing Deandra's history of property fraud schemes, text messages discussing the old man's warehouse and how to convince Emmett once the grandfather's out of the picture. I spent Thursday night at a hotel, couldn't stand being under the same roof as Clarissa. The evidence consumed me, screenshots of messages where Clarissa called me too sentimental and stupid to see opportunity, discussions about forging my signature if necessary, plans to flip the property to developers for a quick profit while I got nothing. But the worst part? A message from 6 months ago, before Pop died, talked to that historian's assistant, confirmed the landmark value. Just need to wait for the old man to kick it, then the property's ours. Emmett is so pussy-whipped he'll do whatever I say. Pussy-whipped. Stupid. A means to an end. I'd loved this woman, shared my dreams, my fears, my bed. and she'd seen only dollar signs. Friday morning arrived with crystal clarity. I dressed in Pop-Pop's old suit, the one he wore to church, pressed and preserved. It fit perfectly, like armor. Mr. Henderson met me at his office. "We've arranged everything," he said. "Trust me." At noon, we arrived at Deandra's lawyer's office, a sleek downtown high-rise. Clarissa was already there, perfume overpowering in the conference room. Deandra sat beside her, confidence radiating like heat. "Emmett." Clarissa rushed over, kissing my cheek. "I'm so proud of you for doing this." The lawyer, a thin man named Jameson with cold eyes, laid out the paperwork. "Simple transfer of deed to the LLC. You'll maintain minority stake. Mrs. Wagner and Ms. Deandra hold majority control." "Sounds perfect," I said, picking up the pen. That's when the conference room door opened, and Dr. Brenton walked in, followed by a woman in a federal marshal's uniform. Clarissa's face drained of color. What is this?" Dr. Brenton's voice was formal, official. "I'm Dr. Richard Brenton, representing the National Park Service and the Historic Preservation Society of Georgia. This property transfer cannot proceed." Deandra stood, her chair scraping back. "On what grounds?" The federal marshal stepped forward. "On the grounds that as of this morning, the property located at 847 Memorial Drive has been officially designated a National Historic Landmark. Any transfer, sale, or alteration requires federal approval, which will not be granted." Jameson, the lawyer's eyes went wide. "But the paperwork said preliminary status." "That was last week," Dr. Brenton said calmly, opening his briefcase. "We expedited the process due to concerns about potential fraud. The designation is now final and recorded." I watched Clarissa's face cycle through confusion, realization, and then pure rage. She turned to me. "You knew. You fucking knew." "Language, Clarissa," I said softly. "We're in a professional setting." Deandra tried to recover, her voice sharp. "This doesn't change anything. Emmett can still sign over his rights." "Actually," Mr. Henderson interrupted, walking in behind the marshal, "it changes everything. The property is now valued at approximately $150 million and cannot be demolished, altered, or transferred without extensive federal review. Any attempt to deceive Mr. Wagner about the property's value or status constitutes fraud." The room went silent except for Clarissa's ragged breathing. $150 million, she whispered. Her eyes met mine, and I saw her realize she'd lost. "You're smarter than I thought." "No," I said, my voice steady for the first time in years. "I'm exactly as smart as I always was. You just mistook kindness for stupidity." Jameson tried to salvage something. "Mrs. Wagner could still argue for marital asset division." "Mrs. Wagner could try," Mr. Henderson interrupted, "but Mr. Wagner inherited the property solely through his grandfather's will, prior to marriage. It's separate property under Georgia law. Additionally," he pulled out a folder, the one from the private investigator. "We have evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, potentially criminal misconduct." I watched Deandra's confident mask crack. She grabbed her bag. "I'm not part of this." Clarissa approached me. "Really, Dee?" Clarissa's voice was venomous. "You're going to throw me under the bus." "There's a bus big enough for both of you," I said. "I have recordings of you discussing forging my signature, texts about waiting for my grandfather to die, messages about manipulating me. The DA might be interested." Clarissa lunged toward me, and the marshal stepped between us. "Emmett, please. I made mistakes, but I love you. We can work this out." "You loved my property," I corrected. "You tolerated me." The truth of it hung in the air. 6 years of marriage, reduced to a con game. Dr. Brenton spoke gently. "Mr. Wagner, I'll need you to come by our offices next week. There are preservation grants, historical society funding, educational programs. Your grandfather's legacy will benefit the entire community." Community. That's what Pop had always cared about, lifting people up, creating something bigger than himself. I turned to Clarissa one last time. I want you out of the condo by tonight. Mr. Henderson will file divorce papers on Monday. The next few weeks were chaos. Clarissa hired a shark lawyer who threatened everything from defamation to mental distress claims. But Mr. Henderson, with Pop-Pop's evidence and Dr. Brenton's testimony, dismantled every argument. The warehouse became news, local first, then national. Historic black landmarks saved from development scheme ran the Atlanta Journal-Constitution headline. My phone exploded with interview requests, but I declined them all. This wasn't about fame. My mother helped me box up Clarissa's things, her commentary running the whole time. These shoes cost more than my car payment. This purse is empty except for receipts from restaurants you couldn't afford. Look at this, a whole drawer of jewelry you bought her, and she wanted to take everything from you. But the biggest surprise came from my Uncle Oscar, Pop-Pop's son. He showed up at the warehouse on a Thursday evening, looking older than I remembered. Emmett, we need to talk. I tensed, expecting another fight about inheritance. Instead, Oscar's eyes were wet. Your Pop-Pop called me before he died. Told me he was leaving everything to you, not me. I was angry, felt like he thought I was a failure. He looked around the warehouse, seeing it properly for the first time. But he told me why. Said you had his heart, his values. Said Oscar. Chased money his whole life and forgot what mattered. He was right. I'm sorry for how I acted at the funeral, for siding with your wife when she started circling. I should have protected you better. We hugged, two men carrying the weight of Pop-Pop's legacy, finally understanding it together. Months later, I stood in the restored warehouse, now the Johnson Wagner Heritage Center, watching elementary school kids tour the exhibits. We'd used preservation grants to stabilize the structure, create a museum showcasing black entrepreneurship and Southern history. The space still smelled like motor oil and possibility, just like Pop-Pop intended. Clarissa's divorce was finalized. She got nothing, moved back to Florida with her mother. Last I heard, Deandra was under investigation for securities fraud in 2 states. But I didn't spend time thinking about them anymore. Dr. Brenton approached with a young woman, late 20s, beautiful in an understated way. Emmett, this is Kenya Richardson. She's the new education director. Kenya smiled, genuine warmth in her eyes. Your grandfather's story is incredible. What you're doing here, honoring his legacy while creating opportunity for others, that's rare. We talked for an hour, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope. Real connection. Someone who saw me, not my assets. That evening, I sat in Pop-Pop's old office, now my office. The city lights twinkled through clean windows. My phone buzzed, a message from Clarissa, you won. Happy now. I didn't respond. Winning wasn't about her losing. It was about understanding that some legacies are worth protecting, that blood and history and community matter more than convenience or profit. Pop-Pop's voice echoed in my memory, don't let nobody take what's yours, Emmett. I hadn't. And I never would again. If you believe everyone deserves respect and that manipulators like Clarissa shouldn't win, hit that subscribe button. Only gold diggers and scammers won't. Comment protect your legacy if you stand against people who use others.